Hello everyone and welcome to the time of recording Untitled OWLS convention. My name is Matt Doyle. I work on mattdoylemedia.com, which, if you aren't familiar, is a pop culture website. I cover a bit of everything from anime to comics to film and TV to video games. I'm also a published author. I wrote a lot of LGBTQ focused sci-fi novels. A couple of them won some minor awards, which is obviously really cool. But I also make video games. I actually started that way back when I was 13, which, to give you an idea how long ago that was, the games that I made I distributed around my high school on 3.5-inch floppy disks. So a fair while back, to say the least. After high school I kind of took a break from doing it until more recently, when I released a visual novel on itch.io called The Fear Ritual. Now, I'm kind of getting back into making some bigger projects. That one was really just a test, and that's kind of what today's video is going to be about. I'm going to show you how to do something very simple in a popular piece of software called Clickteam Fusion 2.5. Now, if you don't know Clickteam Fusion, it's from a company called Clickteam. They've been around the game creation thing for a very, very long time. The founder of the company was part of a team that made Amos back on the Amiga, if you remember that. After that, they kind of went on to things like Click and Play, Click and Create, the Games Factory 1 and 2, Multimedia Fusion. Multimedia Fusion was actually what I used to make games in back when I was a teenager. The current version of the software is Clickteam Fusion 2.5. As far as I'm aware, there are 3 versions available. One is the developer version, which is the biggest package, which is what I'm using right now. There's the standard version, which, you have everything in that you would need to make and produce a game. There's a free version as well. I haven't really looked into that, so I don't know whether it's just a free trial on the standard version or whether it's sort of a toned down version of that. But either way, the idea of it is to enable you to create games without having to understand programming, and in that regard it does succeed. As long as you can follow some basic logic when it comes to eventing things, it takes care of the programming for you, and then there are other additional things you can do that are a little bit more advanced if you want to. My current game project is a point-and-click adventure. So in fitting with that, what I'm going to show you today is, as I say, a little tutorial on how to build a simple click-based puzzle that you can do. We're going to be looking at a lot of different types of values and global and frame-based events. So I'm going to have myself a bit of tea, and then we shall move on to the tutorial. Okay, so I have set us up a new project. I've used some stock images that I found on just a couple of photo sites to build a screen here, and I've set up 2 objects. Now the reason I've set up 2 objects is because right now the window will only show us this little dotted out section here, and we want to be able to move around left and right to see the whole picture. So we set up a camera object, which we set as a bouncing ball, and we set up a pointer object, which is always going to be attached to the mouse. Now, to make this work, we have to go into the events editor, and what I've already done is I've already set up the camera to always look at the pointer, and I've set the pointer to always appear at the X and Y position of the mouse. What we want it to do now is for the screen to focus on the camera, and to do that we go into storyboard controls and we do scrollings, center, horizontal position of window in frame, and we're going to go to camera, position, X coordinate, and it will show you here it's always going to be set at X camera. To show you how that works, if we run the frame, let us move around the screen by way of that. It's a little bit jerky because it's going to basically keep trying to move when it's on there. So what we want to do now is add some other conditions, which will be collision, overlapping camera, and then we want this one to movement stop. Now we can copy and paste this again, and then we're going to negate. So now it's if they are not overlapping, we will have movement start, and you'll see now we can make it stop, we can make it start, we can make it move around, Obviously we don't want them on screen. The way you do that is you just click on the item and visible at start, clicking again, visible at start. So what we've set up here is a little puzzle. You can see there's a little clue above there. The door you can't go through at the moment. Only in the darkness can you truly be free, because you've been kidnapped by someone who likes to think that they're a bit edgy, but they're actually not. They're just a bit of a hammy villain. And we want to show you how to unlock the door. This is why we have these two additional frames here, clock and newspaper. Again, I'm using stock images that I found online, so we'll go add those in now. Insert object, and we're going to insert a backdrop. Now the backdrop this time, we are going to open up clock. Okay. We should be able to shrink this, I would think, to fit onto that screen, no problem. Shrink you right down, and then we will. So I'm not being particularly neat about this, so it's just a demonstration of how this works. So that's that one done. And the newspaper, we do the same again, insert object, and we want backdrop object and newspaper page. Okay, and that can be shrunk a little bit. That'll do for now. If we run the frame, you can see that that will just look like that. So you see a little bit of a newspaper. The clock with no numbers at the moment, you see the clock. So we'll go back to the main screen for now, and we're going to be setting up some global values. We're going to be using these to explain how the game works and how the puzzle works. And the main thing we need is a value for this door. So click on application and global values, new global value, and we will name this door lock. It's currently set to 0. So we'll set up a little event based around that. We will make a new group, because I like to keep things in groups just to make it a little bit easier. We'll call this puzzle. So the mouse user clicks within a zone. We'll say double left click. Now, where are we? There we are. They want to click in the door zone, and then we do insert, and we want to retrieve a value. So compare to a global value. If door lock is equal to 0, then we will play a sample. So what we're doing here is we'll browse from file, we'll play locked. Now just to check that works. See, we can't get out of the door, so we need to figure out how to do that. And the basis of that is going to be around a clock. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more difficult, because we want it to look as nice as we can, even if we're not doing this particularly, not being as neat with it as we would be if we were making an actual thing. The first thing we're going to do is go to the clock screen, and we're going to set up some counters. Now we need to set up more than one counter, because while there is a, where is it? There is a time, date and time. There is a date and time which you can set up an actual clock on, but any changes you make to it, it will actually change your system clock as well, and we don't want to do that. So instead we're going to make our own clock. Now the built-in counter in Clickteam Fusion is, you'd want to really edit it if you were going to do it yourself. So, because it's not particularly nice to look at, but we'll go through, we'll quickly change the numbers to white because it's working on a black screen. For the purposes of the tutorial, it's absolutely fine. And we are actually going to need 4 of these, because until you hit the double digits, the counter does not automatically display double digits, and a 24-hour clock should. So we want to clone the object, and we're going to clone it again, and we'll clone it again, and we'll put these up in place as though it were a clock. Now, just to make sure that we know what we're looking at, we will rename each of them. We'll call this H1, H2, M1, and M2, obviously for hours and minutes. Not quite in line, is it? There we go. Right, and we want a way for people to be able to increase the values on this to a relevant amount. So we're going to set some limits on them. H1 and M1 we're actually going to set at 0, and you will see why when we come to eventing the page. H2 we want a minimum value of 0 and a maximum value of 23, and M2 a minimum value of 0, a maximum value of 59, because of course minutes and seconds. We are going to insert some buttons, and this is what we're going to use to manipulate the time on the clock. So once again, we can just put some very simple buttons in. We can change the text on the button to up, and we'll rename this as well just to make sure we know what we're looking at. H up, and then we will move the background there. We will insert another button down here, and we will call that one H down, and then we do the same again for the minutes. You should be seeing already that when it comes to even doing something as simple as this, there are a lot of moving parts that you need to take into consideration. Shouldn't have called that up, should have called it just up. And sometimes you have to get a little bit tricky with Clickteam Fusion because it doesn't always work in perhaps the way that would be ideal. The system is quite logical, but there are some things it just doesn't do automatically, and the timer is one of those things. What we're going to do now is we're going to make it so that people can change these values, and we're going to make it so that it looks fine. Okay, I'll show you why it wouldn't look fine without some trickery. I won't put this in a group, I'll just try and make it nice and quick and simple. If we go to the button H up to increase the hours, and we do button clicked, and we want, where are we, H2, every time it's clicked we do add to counter 1. Now if we just run this, you will see that it starts off fine, 4, 5, 6, 7. Once we hit the double figures though, the first counter is still visible. The way we get around that is we go to H1 and we want to, no, actually I tell a lie, we go to H2. We go to H2 and we say compare the counter to a value. If we say greater or equal than 10, and then we set, where are we, H1, visibility, make invisible. What will happen now is when we get all the way up to 10, that disappears, and then we need to set up coming back down. H down, button is clicked, subtract from counter, subtract 1. Now we'll try running it again. Goes up to 10, it disappears, comes back down, and you see that then is gone. So now we do a second set of values again just to counteract that. We do H2 compare to value. If it is lower than 10, visibility, make object reappear. So we do it now, disappears, and it comes back. And we're basically going to copy this across for obviously the minutes, so we'll get that done nice and quick now. Minute up, button clicked, okay, we'll give it a quick try. Again, check it's still working on here, and yep, and should do the same on here. Excellent. So that is the basis of the clock. The way we get to that screen is we're going to use another click in a zone event. So this time we're going to do the mouse, user clicks within a zone, double click with the left button, and we're going to put it over the clock. So if we now run the application, got a nice sound effect. Oh, stay still. Let's maximise the screen, make it a little bit easier. Double click on here. And that's not working. So let's figure out why that's not working, because I didn't complete it. That would be why. Jump to frame, clock. Okay, this time, there we go, it jumps to the clock. Now, we also want the clock to be displayed on here. There would be two general ways to do this. One would be by turning the clock digits in the clock page to global items, which would mean that we could have them the same across each frame. But any change you make to one affects the other. So what that would mean is that essentially we would end up with having to shrink the numbers on this screen, and it would shrink them on the clock screen as well, which would be no good. So the way we're going to get them to sync up is we're going to create some new counters, and then we're going to link them all to another set of global values. So we'll do the counters first. In fact, let's make that a little bit bigger so we can actually see the numbers. Right. Now, so you can draw your own numbers on there. You can import images if you want something a little bit fancier. But for now, this will do, I think. Right, so let's shrink that to the right sort of size. Yeah, I think that looks okay. We'll make some clones of this again. Clone once, clone twice, clone 3 times. Not quite in line. That'll do for now. Right, so let's rename these. H1, H2, M1, and M2. Now, global values. We're going to set these up again. Where are we? Values. So we want all more global values, and of course we'll name them H1, H2, H3, H4. We are going to set this up in the clock page so that the global values, we want them to always equal the same as these, with the corresponding one. So we'll set up an always event, and we will storyboard controls, is it? No, it's in here. Right, set change a global value. So we want to set H1 to, where are you? In fact, we don't actually need all of those global values, do we? Because we only actually change the 2s. Yeah, so we can actually can we remove that? No, we'll leave it there for now. We'll tidy that up another time. Change global value. Set. So we want to set H2 to current value. And then we're going to do the same again. Change global value. Set. Oh, we put it as H4. That was weird. Okay, well, we'll set it to that current value. We'll just correct that now, and M1, M2. Okay, we then go back to our game screen, and we want to do much the same in here. Ooh, don't want to run that yet. Actually, that's something else I'll show you. You'll notice there the counters are moving with the screen, as because by default they are set to do so. The way we get around this is under, where are we? Runtime options? No. So under one of these tabs, it allows you to choose where they move with the screen. Why can I not find it? Here we go. Right, scrolling options. If we highlight follow frame, that means they will stay in their position in the frame or on the picture, and they will then remain there no matter what. And I've missed one of them, haven't I? Which one have I missed? Yeah, M1. Double check that. Yeah, there we go. So they're now staying in place. Anyway, right, back to the events. So we want to go to event editor, and we will have always, and we want H2, set counter, and retrieve global value H2. And we should then have M2, set counter, retrieve global value M2. Now we're also going to set up a similar thing that we did on the other frame, in that we want H2 compare to a value greater or equal to 10, H2 compare to value lower than 10, and we do the same again with M2. And we're going to do the same thing with the visibility, because we want to make sure that the other counter doesn't get in the way of those figures. And same again down here, visibility, invisible, reappear. Now we need a way to check that that's still working, and the way we're going to do that is by creating a global object this time, because we're going to want to reuse this object in the newspaper screen as well. We'll set both of those up at the same time. All we'll do is we'll create an active object. We'll grey out a bit up there, and let's give it a nice big red X. We can increase the page size, brush size there. Delete that. Put that back up. Okay, so you see down here we have global object, which means that when we use that on any screen, it's going to do the same things. Any changes we make to it will affect all versions of the object. So let's go into, in fact, we can do this in global events, I think. Yep, there we go, import the object. So we'll have global object, right, the mouse. If the mouse user clicks on an object, double clicks, and we'll have this, then we will always jump to the game screen. And we'll go to the newspaper, we'll drag it in there as well, and then we will go back and we'll give a test that this works. We can test all of it, in fact. So click on here, set it to a time, let's say 11:19. Go back, that clock now shows 11:19, and it did come back to the right screen. We'll bring this back down. Now it's reset the clock. So the default setting on there is always 0. The way we get around this is we go back to the clock page, and under the always event we will have always set, now which 2 is it? It's H2 and M2. Always set counter. In fact, no, we'll make this a start of the frame event, because we don't want it to risk interfering with the changes that we're making. So start of frame, H2, set counter, and we will retrieve global value H2 and M2. We will, well, we set counter, retrieve global value M2. Okay. Let's, while we're here, we'll make the newspapers clickable as well. User clicks within a zone. Double click. And this time we'll make the zone newspapers. And that will jump to frame newspaper. Right, let's run application and test this again. So, can move left and right. The door is locked. The newspaper takes us to newspaper. Come back. And the clock. We'll set some random time again. 11:11. Now it's 11:12. Jump back, it's still 11:12. So, excellent. So the next step we need to do is to finish the puzzle. What we have on the newspaper screen is a little clue. We have obviously up here, only in the darkness can you truly be free. And you'll notice up in the top corner here, tomorrow the sun is due to rise at 4:30 AM and will set again at 7:20 PM. So 7:20 PM in the 24-hour clock would be 1920. So we go into the clock page and we're going to do another little event here. We want to set it so that if H2 is compare counter to a value is equal to 19, insert, and M2 is equal to 20, we are going to disable the buttons. And this will be an indicator for the player that they have found the correct time. We'll check this works here, and you'll see it won't work unless both are right. If we had 21:20, still buttons are still working. If we had 19:21, they're still working. But now 19:20, they're not working. So we go back to the main screen, and we are going to insert an active object, because this is how we're going to indicate to the player that actually they're on the right track. Let's open up, and we've got the door. So we have an open door. Drag that into the right place, and we want this to be invisible at the start. So display visible at start, no. Now here's where we need to make a little bit of change into what we're doing in here. The door lock has to be set to 0 in order to play this sample, the lock sample. What we want to do is in the clock, once we've hit this, we are also going to change a value of a global value, door lock to 1. And what that will do, that will indicate to the game that that puzzle has been solved and we can do something else. So on here, we are going to event editor. We will copy this and paste, remove that sample, door lock equals 1, and this time we will play the sample. Where are we? From file, unlocked, and we will make this reappear. Now there will be a problem with this, which I will demonstrate now. If we were to, let's set this to the right time and solve the puzzle. Right now it is going to make the unlock noise every single time we open the door. So you see now, door opens, but if we click again, we're still making it every time, and we don't want it to do that. So once we've done this, we also then change global value, set door lock to 2. And there we go. We will test this away. Obviously, if you were making this a full thing, you'd be a little bit tidier with the work, and you would have a reward from them. You know, once the door's open, they can go through to the next room, or you'll get a congratulations message or whatever. You could also technically, in fact, let's do that. Let's make the, yeah, here we go. We will do scrollings, center horizontal position at, I'll show you why I don't tend to do this, why I just tend to use a taller screen. Position Y coordinate, because now it goes a little bit crazy like that, and that would be why, because I messed that one up, didn't I? Okay, if you mess something up like that, you can actually come in here and you can see the whole thing laid out in a slightly different way. So we'll just delete that, and we will do that again. For scrollings, center vertical position, position Y coordinate. Now this isn't actually too bad here, it does let you move around quite smoothly, but if you have too big a playing area, it does get a little bit, it struggles to catch up, especially if you're using layers to have like a HUD at the bottom of the screen. So I don't recommend doing that
in this type of puzzle. But regardless, so we're here now, we're trapped, only in the darkness can you truly be free. There's a clock, we don't know what to do with it, but if you go to the newspaper, oh, you gonna let me click on it? No, it's not going to let me click for some reason, so why is it doing that? We are on the correct zone. That should jump to frame newspaper. Let's remove the Y, see if that makes a difference. It's because I'm just running application, isn't it? I'm running frame. We want to run application. Okay. Yeah, that's obviously the mistake. You're not going to jump around frames if you're just running the single frame. If you're running the full application, you will. So again, we're trapped. There's the clue. Go across the newspaper. All the little news pieces, and then right up here, the sun will set at 7:20. So we need to set it to, maybe first we try 7:20. But nope, that's still locked. Then we realise it's a 24-hour clock, so we go up to 19:20 and everything's locked out. And the door unlocks and it's not making any more noise when we click. So there we have it, a very simple puzzle created in Clickteam Fusion 2.5. As I said, you would normally, if you're actually making something seriously, you would be a lot neater with this. And there are certainly more than one ways to do each individual thing, especially with things like the counters and the global strings. You'll find that you probably rely a lot on global values and global strings to get a lot of puzzle things done. You can also set up boundaries for the little camera icons so that you can increase the speed depending how far away from the mouse you are, which is, I believe, how they do it in Five Nights at Freddy's in the original game. There's barriers sort of around here and around here, and then it would be the same again around here and around here. Ooh, drag that out of the way. And that would increase and decrease the speed appropriately. But the basis of it is just this. And as a system, Clickteam Fusion 2.5 is very robust, it's very easy to work with, and there's a lot of fun to be had in simply building things in there, whether it be a point-and-click game or a platformer or even a fighter. I hope this has kind of given you an interesting little look into how it all works, and I don't know, maybe encourage you to give it a crack yourself, even if you just download the free version just to see what you can do with it. A lot of the stuff that you would need are actually built in as things. I mean, you look at the movement types here. We've set it to a bouncing ball, but you can also have it follow a direct path. You can have it run like a race car. You can have platformer. There are physics engines built in. There are movement extensions. And all the items that you can add in terms of objects, there's a lot of them already there. But you can click Manager, and there are a lot more 3B ones that you can throw in as well, like you see there, flash sound, binary trees, key objects, Android input, Xbox Connect, QuickTime 2 object. So there's a lot of stuff that you can add in as and when you need it. Good one I quite like is it perspective? Yeah, perspective object. Let's install a perspective object just to give you an idea of the sort of additional things that are already there. So now that should be installed. If we set this up just to cover the screen, when we run the frame, it bends the object for you. So again, lots of fun things you can do there. But for now, that's me done. So again, hope you enjoyed, and I hope you've enjoyed everything else on the tour. Catch you later.